Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session from the TXCPA Mentor Program. I'm going to have Angie Hardy moderate this session for the Careers in Accounting Part 2. But before we get started on that, I did want to do a couple of housekeeping items. I did send out an email last week with the link to the mid-semester review. If you can please go ahead and fill that out. One of the questions in the review is to provide an idea for a topic. Our last session this semester is a pick your own topic. So we want to go get some panelists to speak about something that you're interested in. So if you could please give me some feedback, that would be greatly appreciated. If you didn't get my email, please let me know. I will drop my email address inside of the chat. Hopefully you have it by now, but go ahead and let me know and I will send out that link. Otherwise, let's go ahead and let's get started. Angie.
Sorry, let me go pee class.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining us for this session. I'm super excited to talk to our three panelists today about careers in accounting. Sorry, I forgot. Do we typically introduce everyone, or we just introduce the panelists, I think?
Just the panelists.
Okay. So I'm going to go in no particular order and ask you guys to please introduce yourself, and then we'll kick off with the questions. Vanessa, can you please introduce yourself and say hi to everybody?
Hi, Vanessa Huebner. I'm a controller at Privateer Capital Management, which is a family office in Austin, Texas.
Thanks so much for being with us. And Tina?
Hi, I'm Tina. I'm currently working in the investment division of TRS, Teacher Retirement System of Texas, which is the largest public pension in Texas.
Thanks for being here. And Jeremy?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Tui. I'm the CFO of Energy Renewal Partners, which is a environmental engineering and consulting company based here in Austin.
Again, thanks to all of y'all for being here today. I apologize, I'm gathering myself more than I was planned on because my Zoom client decided to update right before this meeting, so I apologize for that. So I should introduce myself. So sorry. I'm Angie Hardy, and I work as a business operations manager at Elastic, and I've been a CPA for about 10 years, and I've been volunteering and active with the chapter that whole time, and really get a lot of value out of it. And I think this mentor program's been really great, which is why I volunteered to help coordinate this panel, because I think it's a great way to give back to our younger CPAs and student CPAs who are just starting out in their careers. So we have some just generic questions, but if you guys that we can go through with the panelists, and I see a chat link. Oh, that's from Julie. But if you have any specific questions or additional questions you want to ask throughout while we're talking, please feel free to go ahead and just drop those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. So Jeremy. Jeremy and I worked together a long time ago at Temple Inland in the accounting department, and then also as business analyst. So I know his background a little bit better than the others. But can you talk to us about specifically? You obviously you were in public accounting originally, and then you made the decision to go into industry. Can you talk about what was that experience like? What prompted that decision, and what pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, sure. I started out in tax, and I worked for tax for about 4 years. And I think the biggest driver that drove me to industry and out of public was probably at some point when, and I was a senior tax accountant. At some point when you're in public, it becomes about clients and the business of being in the business of consulting. And I just didn't really have a lot of interest in that. I liked the technical aspects of it and the stuff, but the actual wanting to develop a client base and, be a salesperson just didn't interest me. And that's kind of the next stage when you get to a manager. There's a lot more of that business development aspect that I had started to see more of, and I just realized I didn't think I would be successful with that. And then
Wasn't a good fit.
no, and then also it was you know, the hard part also for me was when you work in tax, you get a little bit of snippets into the people's businesses, but actually trying to get like it was just really curious because you look at this, you're like, oh, this is cool, but then you know you have to move on to the next tax return, you have to move on to the next thing, and so to actually see like a business cycle of it was really, you know, I wanted to be part of something as opposed to part of a firm. So that was probably the biggest driver.
Interesting. Vanessa, I know you work in a, I apologize, it's a private equity
It's a family office.
family office. And so you get to work with you kind of have a similar experience working with a lot of different entities.
I wear a lot of hats.
You wear a lot of hats.
And that's just part of it in a smaller office.
How did you end up in this current role that you're in? And did you plan for that early in your career, or was it kind of a surprise to you?
This is a niche that I kind of fell into my lap. I worked for another family office. I too, with like Jeremy, started in public accounting, and I agree. I did not want to be the salesperson to develop that client base. I enjoyed doing the work, but I didn't want to go out and network in the community to develop that client base. Made a switch into industry to a place that needed someone to do tax work for a wealthy family. So I was able to do tax work in-house, and it saved the family several $1,000s a year. I switched jobs after that company sold, and a couple of jobs later, I fell into a family office, which I absolutely loved. Different entities, different family aspects, and that family office, the son took over the daily management and moved to Dallas, and I stayed here in Austin, and I was not asked to go along, but I had, God had a plan for me, and I found this office. A headhunter called and said, just listen to this opportunity. And it was basically the same thing I had been doing. And so a very small office, and in a small office, like I said, you wear a lot of hats. So I'm the controller, but I also can do payables. I can, if need be, I'm emptying the dishwasher. It's a whole realm of responsibilities, which is not what you think of in the accounting role, but smaller offices, it's something to think about, because you're not just zoned in on that. That's not my job, because everything becomes your job.
Yes. Excuse me. I totally understand that. Tina, tell us a little bit about your job and how you ended up in your current role.
Right. As I mentioned, I currently work for Teacher Retirement System of Texas in the Investment Management Division. So what I'm doing, in summary, investment operations, and then break it down a little bit more. I do some tax service enhancement. I open trade accounts, and I do analytics projects. So that's kind of what covers my work responsibility. I wouldn't say that I started out knowing that this is the path I would like to take. I'm the third generation accountant in my family. My
Nice.
mom, my grandma, they're all accountants. So I know that I would do something related to accounting. And when I was in school, I try out different internships, different side jobs, like in audit, in tax, with a boutique investment bank. So I try out different things. And this is the one that I found a niche that a combination of investment and accounting is something that, really, I just like it. So I think it's important that we like what we do. And
Absolutely.
my first job was with Heinz Real Estate Investment Company, which is the one that, if you're familiar in Houston, built the Galleria Mall. And and then later on, I worked for Texas Children's Hospital, the investment division as well. And then when I moved to Austin here, I'm looking around and see what, investment companies or entities available. TRS is the one that I felt like, I can, through my work, I can make a positive impact in the lives of Texas educators. So that's how I ended up where I am today.
That's amazing. So did you ever work in tax, or did you just do your internship?
Briefly, yes.
Okay.
I know that how much fun.
I know, and a lot of people are very, very busy right now. In fact,
right.
as the deadline looms, right? But you mentioned internships, and I think that's something like, I don't know, just something I've always thought was important is to keep an open mind and try an internship, even if you're not 100% sure it'll be a good fit. At least you'll understand. And I don't know that this was your experience, but I know I started a job, and it wasn't an internship, it was a job, but like just a few months in, I went, oh, this isn't for me. Like, this industry is not for me. And it was a really valuable learning experience. So I tried to look at it that way.
I agree. It's easier to find out what we don't like versus what we like.
What you do like.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So, Vanessa, can you tell us what a typical project would be that you might work on, more of a long-term type project that you might work on in your role?
Oh, insurance is one of the, it's an ongoing project. It's not now I'm done, because it evolves every year. There's renewals. The home in the family office, there's homes, there's vehicles, the umbrella, the liability. So it's just an ongoing project, and you have to keep up with it. If there's a claim to be made, you have to keep up with the claim and what's the status of the claim. That's a big one. Probably if there are when there are notes between entities, making sure that the interest payments are made, keeping track of the note payments when they're due, making sure they're paid, accruing interest on those. That's another that can be, if you let it get behind, it can be daunting to catch up.
To catch back up.
Insurance, and those are just continual projects that need hands-on on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure. Jeremy, tell us about, same question to you. What's a typical type project you might work on? I know you're the CFO, so you kind of manage everything, but.
Yeah, I think an ongoing thing that that's a continuous improvement thing that, is not just unique to my role here, but everywhere, which is, for us, it's refining and managing key performance indicators, KPIs. So their KPIs are an important factor, and accounting goes into those. But also what's important about them is that you look at them and you see if they're making sense and if you need to balance them. So in other words, like, one of the big performances when you're a service-based company is like, how billable are your people, what that percent is. And in a vacuum, you look at it and you're like, okay, this is the target, but you need to counter that, because there could be a lot of people that bill a lot of hours, but we're not able to actually bill this to the client because they went over budget. So you balance that KPI with something called realization. So how of the time you build, how much could I charge out, and evolve that, ever evolving, to make sure that you're aligning the goals of the company and you can represent those financially or some sort of metric. And that's a discussion with management. And then you really want to balance that out so that you're looking at it in a right way that isn't, for lack of a better word, stupid, just where you're managing to a number and it doesn't make any sort of sense. So I think that's part of neat thing about being an accountant is you kind of know the sauce that gets how those numbers kind of facilitate, and you can see when something is going to create a funny KPI, or the other side of that, which is I always find incredibly interesting, which is something called a perverse incentive, which is where you're creating something that's creating a result that you didn't want at all, and because of human behavior. And that's just a really neat thing, and the thing to always watch and see how are you balancing the recipe of metrics successfully so that you can take into account everything. So that's always an ongoing project for me as a CFO, is to review those and look at it and make sure when we don't need adjustments, or our business hasn't changed in such a way that these no longer make sense in certain aspects.
And I think that's really something that is really important for anyone pursuing a career in accounting to think about. Is it's you can get caught up in the technical debits and credits and making everything tie exactly right, but I think where you can really add value is where you can step back and say, does this make sense, and does it make sense for the business? And so that analytical, that kind of understanding the why, and really just making sure that all the numbers that you're presenting, that they not only do they tick and tie, but that they make sense and that they're serving the business purpose that the business goals that you're trying to achieve. And
I always take on a high level approach is and even on a financial statement that you guys are working on or something, what is the story that's being told here? Like, what does this say? It's easier to get lost in something, but oftentimes as a sanity check to see if you've made a mistake does this make sense? Like, if just keep on asking yourself if something went up, but it shouldn't have gone up. Like it's easy to get lost in something. And I think what separates good accountants from great accountants is the ability to look at something and kind of know, step back and be like, something doesn't make sense here. Let's get out of, a T chart and look at, kind of at a 5,000 foot level to see if there's something else going on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask the same question to Tina, since I already asked you. Tell us what a typical project is that you might work on in your role.
Sure. So my role is a little bit different than a traditional accounting role. So I'm in investment operations. So investment operations, the goal is to help investment managers make smart investment decisions, right? That's the ultimate goal of it. And then my work basically just involves multiple steps, from pre-trading, like helping the investment manager, like doing something called due diligence, looking into whether or not we want to invest in this particular manager, and then to trade processing, to data management, and then to performance, like how well, just like your own investment, portfolio, how well your investment portfolios are performing. So that's what we measure as well. And then all the analytics involve this. And then of course, anything has to do with anything when you have money moving around, there's tax, right? So we work a lot of the tax projects as well, and then compliance as well. So that's pretty much, summarizing what I do here. As I mentioned, the one that closest to, I find it to be most useful from my accounting background is performance measurement, and also tax service enhancement projects. Yeah, and those are very, like without the CPA training, I think I wouldn't be doing it so, smoothly as of now.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question that I want to ask to all three of the panelists, which is, if you could go back to the start of your career when you were just starting out, what advice would you give yourself? Like, you now going back to you then, what advice would you give yourself? Jeremy, let's start with you.
Oh, okay.
I'll pick on you.
I would probably say to better get a technology is always going to be probably the most important thing. And I really would have probably told myself to take a lot more computer classes, as far as programming. I mean, I have had to learn SQL and stuff on the fly. And it is, as more and more things get automated from like routine tasks, the importance of understanding how information flows is critical, because my experience has been when a computer makes a mistake, it makes a mistake in the same way, and it can make the mistake a million times faster than like a human entry. And so
and at scale, right?
And at scale. So it is understanding just basically some more information technology or IT systems has just been, it's something that I've had to learn on the job. And I feel like I for a large part of my career was behind the curve on that. So I think that would be something that I would say is, hey, don't underestimate the importance of like hard IT skills in our job and how important they can be.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
And I would, if I was now then I would also tell you guys to really keep an eye on the AI space. It's, changing a lot of things.
Very rapidly, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. So there's, but there's also like, I think our space is going to change as far as what we do and where we're at. So I would just say keep an eye on technology, make sure you're ahead of it.
I think that's excellent. And I see your question, Sam and Sarah, and yes. Okay, let's go to Vanessa. What advice would you give yourself as starting out in your career? What do you wish you had known?
I would probably back it up to when I was in college 100 years ago. When I was there was one finance course required to go with my accounting degree. And in hindsight, I wish I had taken more finance courses and had a better understanding of that aspect of the industry to go in conjunction with the accounting classes. So if woulda, coulda.
How about you, Tina?
Well, I don't know if everybody has the CPA license here in this conference room. I would definitely say that having the CPA license is very helpful, and I will probably push for CFA earlier in my career. Like now,
fraud exam.
Yes, like get a license, get all the licenses needed when I'm younger, because when we start to have family, and then when you go into license exams that take some time, it's a little bit trickier. Yeah,
totally. We had a specific question for Jeremy from the audience. Jeremy, did you have any finance background before becoming CFO?
No, and I would agree with Vanessa said about the finance classes. I got into the CFO, not the role here, but my first role as a CFO was at a larger home security company, and I got thrusted into that as I showed up on day one there, and I was hired as a controller, and I got told that the CFO had been fired for committing fraud. So and we were out of compliance with our loans and covenants, and it was a sink or swim moment. And they kind of just, I don't want to say, I one day I came in and like the CEO introduced me to the CFO, and it was like, okay, I guess that makes me now.
No pressure.
And from there it was learning on that aspect of it. So no, I didn't have, other than maybe one or two financial analysis classes. To be honest with you, I don't know how much this classes really would have helped from an aspect of just learning about like, structured financing and stuff like that is really probably not something they get into that level of stuff with school. I would say more important than, so finance is understanding the operations of the business. But it is something where you kind of have to just drink from a garden hose on it. And I don't know that even if I had a finance background, I don't know that it would prepare you fully for the CFO role. I think it's just really something you just get as being exposure on it. I mean, Vanessa mentioned insurance. That's something that I had no idea doing. And I just basically was like, okay, to our broker, you're going to have to explain this to me slowly and with a lot of details, because I need to know this a little bit more. Health insurance is another one that I've had, various places I'm dealing with, trying to deal with our renewals and stuff and trying to understand that. But yeah, it's, just lean in as much as you can and just try to understand as much as you can and get exposure to as much as you can. And then because you never know where you're going to wind up, and just be there when opportunity's ready.
So true.
So true. So we're at the 30-minute mark. I have one more question I want to ask all three panelists, and then we can break into breakout rooms. And Jeremy, your story you just told might already answer this question. But what is the biggest surprise? What is the biggest, what was the most unexpected thing for you that you've just learned or discovered or experienced in your career?
You want me to go other than that?
It's up to you. If you have another one, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the importance of, again, I think it's the importance of getting out and working with operations and understanding stuff, because it's so easy to be in a vacuum. And I will also tell you this, like, the thing that makes you further in your career is not going to be necessarily the best account. Like, it's being the best accountant as viewed by the operations or the salespeople or the side of the business that makes business. It's easy to be compliance focused and stuff like that, but it's easier to try to tell everybody why being in compliance is a good thing and how that can save you out of trouble or work within it, and just to get out there. And it also just makes you a better accountant.
Yeah,
the best way I can say that.
And I think a lot of what you're describing is just being a good business partner, right? Like, we don't want to, if we're the accountant, we don't want to go to the salespeople and say, you have to do everything, you have to do all this data entry and get everything exactly this way so that it makes my job super easy. You want to understand what their needs are, understand what your needs are for compliance and accounting, and then make a decision that's the right decision for the business. And that's just being a business partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa, how about you? What's been the biggest surprise for you?
Probably just the culmination of things that are under the realm of my responsibility, that back when I started, I had no idea that I would be doing things like, as Jeremy pointed out, the insurance, the health insurance, all the, HR umbrella, if you will. And that was something that I had no idea was included with this, as far as, when I started working at Ernst & Winnie, back when there was Ernst & Winnie in a tax office. So just, if you have those opportunities, take them and just become a sponge and learn what you can.
Yep. Don't pass up an opportunity to, even if you're, and I know I'm guilty of this. I'm like, oh, I've never done that before. I don't know if I want to try, but you try, and sometimes you're going to fail, and that's going to be a learning experience. And
you learn from that. And so next time you know better.
That's right.
And move on. Yeah.
Tina, what about you? How's most unexpected or surprise thing in your career?
But this might sound like a cliche, but people skill is really important.
So true.
I think I study a lot, and then I do a lot of technical work. So sometimes I feel like I'm kind of limiting myself in my own world. then especially with especially during COVID, right? So, and after COVID, I feel like, like when I connect with different people, and I realize the amount of resource that people have in terms of job searching, and also, like promoting or other opportunities. So that's just something I think quantity matters. Like the more people you talk to, and then they will have some resource. They will have you'll find people who are attracted to who you are, and then work along well with you. So that's kind of what I think that comes as a surprise in my career, that it's more than just balancing the book. We need to reach out to different people.
Yeah. I want to give everybody a minute if you have any other questions to put them in the chat. But I totally echo what you're saying, Tina. I think, you can be the smartest, best accountant in the whole wide world. And if you can't convey that information to someone else or partner with somebody, whether it's in your company or outside your company, it's not going to do you that much good if you can't have that external exchange of information or interaction. Anyone else? Feel free to, if you want to just come off mute, you're welcome to as well. You guys are a quiet bunch. Lauren, are you still there?
I am.
Awesome. Well, I want to, we'll let the panelists go. We want to say thank you again so much for your time, and really appreciate this chance. Yeah, go ahead.
Angie, can I ask a question to the panelists?
Of course.
So like I'm about halfway done with the coursework that I need to be able to qualify for the CPA exam, and even like taking some of the tax classes now, I still feel like, man, I wouldn't even be prepared to start doing like, income taxes for some of these corporations or even partnerships, things like that. So, I mean, was it school that prepared a lot of these people for what they did in real life, or would that just kind of give them bases? And then once they get into the real work, once they get into the real world, I guess, for work, did they start really learning the details and how to go about, just day-to-day business as a CPA?
That's a great question. And you guys want to volunteer to answer?
For me, I would say that your schooling and your education, that gets you the ability to, I think, know what questions to ask intelligently. But ultimately and I'm not trying to not sound glamorous here, but your very first job, especially if you go into tax, is going to be a tax return where they tell you to do, you're going to learn the word Sally a lot, which is same as last year. So you're going to pick up the tax return from last year, and you're going to do a lot of what you did from last year. And so you're going to learn. And then at every level, you're going to get 15 notes from people that are reviewing it and sitting it down. And, and you're going to feel that you did the same thing the same way on one person, and then you got a review note that back to change it to something else. And another partner is going to review that and tell you to do the exact opposite of it. So I would say, don't be scared that you don't feel ready for something, because nobody is when they get out. And I think just understanding and being open to the opportunity, and just remembering that this is what I learned. That being said, the CPA exam is totally different as far as you want to make sure you memorize that shit and get it ready because that's you need to know that for that. But yeah, I mean, if you don't work for somebody, you should not work for any place or anybody that doesn't help you with your knowing where you're coming from your skill set. If you're going someplace and they're not helping you, they're never going to help you. If you're not, especially if you're new and they're not helping you, then I would advise you to go someplace where you feel supported and you can develop, because otherwise, I mean, it's like a plant without sun. It's just, it doesn't grow very, very well. So.
And to add to that, when you're starting out, they know you don't know, or at least my experience was that the employer knows that you are very green and is there to help guide you because they want you to stay. They don't want it to be a revolving door in most cases. So they are there to help guide you so that you are learning.
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts on that, Tina? Or
Well, I don't know what's the passing score these days for the tech session for CPA. I got 76 out of 100. So
I think it was 75. Is it
It
still
was
75?
75 still? I'm doing fine.
See, there you go.
Echoing to what Jeremy said, I think there's so many, employers out there. You definitely want to choose a team that, will work with you and help you out. And that's very important.
Yeah. If you're at an employer that's not investing in you or not supporting you, yeah, maybe you don't want to be there. Maybe you want to try someplace that is going to have that investment in your development. Good advice.
I have another question. Kind
Awesome.
of follow up. Well, when preparing for the CPA exam, as far as the panelists go, do you guys think it's in the best interest to pay for the best class that's
Becker?
going to probably be a little bit more expensive, versus one that's just basic,
I cannot stress it enough that is the best thing for you to do.
Yeah, that's kind of my
it
plan.
is-
It's like, I don't care what it's going to cost. Just give me the best class.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Thank
The
you.
return on investment is huge. If you invest the money in a really good CPA review program, it returns. It's a good return on the investment, I think.
Awesome.
I saw a
Thank you.
few other nods as well. Vanessa's nodding, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else from anyone?
Hey,
We appreciate you guys so much.
on the phone.
Hey, Sam, you're still off mute. Oh, there you go. Thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to talk to our the mentees in our program. We really appreciate it. Appreciate your words of wisdom. And yeah, you guys are free to drop. I think we're going to go into a breakout room so that everybody can have a chance to chat with their the mentor-mentee breakouts.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to meet you all. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.